Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It's so good to see you all. I know it's a great cold night, especially for late May, so I appreciate everyone making the effort to come out. I hope everyone got a little bit of pizza and a cupcake. I'm so thrilled to welcome you here tonight. My name is Elise Hoffenberg. I'm the clerk of the Township of Lyons. This is like my living room. I love entertaining here. I love bringing the community together to learn and build and grow. So many familiar faces. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce a public servant whose leadership and advocacy has made a profound impact on our justice system, not just in Cook County, but across the nation. Sheriff Tom Dart has served as the Sheriff of Cook County since 2006. During that time, he has built a reputation as one of America's most forward-thinking and reform-minded law enforcement officers. Prior to serving as a county sheriff, Sheriff Dart was a Cook County Assistant State's Attorney. He also was a state rep as well as a state senator. So Sheriff Dart, he knows all sides of the law, from the judicial to the legislative to now the executive. So what a valuable experience he brings to the people of Cook County. With this vast knowledge and experience, Sheriff Dart has taken bold steps to confront some of the most difficult and often overlooked issues in our community, including mental health, gun violence, and today's absolutely urgent topic, human trafficking. Under his leadership, the Cook County Sheriff's Office has developed nationally recognized strategies to combat trafficking, protect victims, and hold perpetrators accountable. He has worked to ensure that survivors are not treated as criminals, but as individuals in need of compassion, resources, and support. Please join me in welcoming a tireless advocate for justice and a champion for the vulnerable, Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart and his amazing team of Special Victims Unit sheriffs.
Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for coming out tonight, and I'm sure it had more to do with the pizza than coming to hear me talk. I just wanted to talk a little bit on the front end from my perspective, which is usually much of a bigger picture, and then some folks from my office were going to talk a little bit more specific. And when I'm done speaking, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have of me, but then we're going to have some speakers afterwards. This topic is, I've always felt that you really sort of have to start with trying to understand just what it is we're talking about. Because most of us get our sort of thoughts on it from various sources, frequently from the newspapers, but often from like the media, like movies and things like that. And so frequently when I would talk to people about human trafficking, they would usually go to a movie or something they'd seen. And frequently there's often people referencing like a Liam Neeson movie or something along those lines. It's like that's what trafficking is. And so people would have a little bit of an understanding of it, but really not the true understanding about what human trafficking is. And we do numerous things in this area. We do it with trafficking of people for free labor and things along those lines. But the majority of the work we do is when people are being trafficked, when their bodies are being sold. And so that's the primary focus of ours. So we do it when people are being trafficked for labor. But really, what is it? As I say, so much of it is people's perception that this is something that happens with people from foreign countries. If you were to ask most people about this topic, they say, "Oh, I've seen it. It's women being trafficked from Eastern Europe or women being trafficked from Southeast Asia," and that does occur. That does occur, but that is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 or 3% of it. That's it. The vast majority, 90+% of the people that, not just us, but around the country, who are trafficked are local women being trafficked by local people. And that's just the truth. That's not, I could make it sensational. It's not. This is what is happening. And it is literally everywhere, folks. So there is no community you can sit there and say that none of that goes on around me. No, it goes on everywhere. And I've often told people, one of the things I found fascinating is when I was asked to give a talk about this, this had to be like 10 years ago, and there was a group of individuals that were from the North Shore of Cook County, so like the lake, I live on the south side, so north of Madison Avenue, I get pretty confused. But like Wilmette, up in that way and stuff. And so when I started the presentation, it was in a room a little bigger than this, and before I actually got started talking, I had a screen, and playing on the screen was video that we took the week before. And what it was video, and I didn't say anything about it. It was just playing. And I then started talking and say, hey, does anybody here know what this video is? And they, like, everyone's hand went up. I said, oh my God, that's our main street in Wilmette. And I said to them, I said, I'm sorry, that's the film from our trafficking sting we did last week. And you could hear a pin drop. And it was the effect I was trying to get, which is incredibly nice, engaged, mostly women at this thing, but had no notion that this went on in their area. None. And then I was able to walk them through all the arrests we made and all the people we took into our care to try to help them and stuff. And I did it more to set the tone for it, to let them know, no, this is everywhere, folks. The notion that somehow this is a foreign issue, foreign problem, no. That's the movies, folks, the movies. The reality is these are local women, most exclusively women. Do some men get trafficked? Yeah, it's very small, very small. And the women running, the age range is a wild swing. It's a wild swing. It's the majority of them are in the late teens, early 20s, but we get people in early teens. It's horrible. And then we get people who are older as well, and it's a range of things that go on along that way. But the biggest point I want to get across to you is that this is a problem that is infecting every single community in the United States, every single community. And then the question is, okay, well, what are you doing about it? And law enforcement traditionally did the same thing. And it wasn't because of, people not really engaged. No, they're engaged, but they were using the same tools that they've been using since the 1920s, 1930s, which is, well, let's just go out and arrest all the prostitutes. Let's go arrest the prostitutes. And when I started as sheriff, that's what had been going on everywhere, not just in the sheriff's office, but in all the departments. And I understood underlying it, what was going on as well, is that community members wanted prostitution not in their backyard. I get that. So you need to remove the problem. But at no point did anybody ask to me what was the obvious question. Is it fixing it? Is it changing anything? And when I would ask that pretty stupid question, the answer was always the same thing. Oh, no. Usually by the time we get her in custody, we get her to our department, we fingerprint her, we write up the reports, she's then bonded out, we're still writing the reports and she's already released, and she's usually right back to where we just left her. And then this process would just continue to go on over and over and over again. And I would tell people, I go, now folks, does anybody think this is effective? And there would be dead silence in the room. No one would say, oh no, yeah, Sheriff, it's really effective. It was like, well, no, this is actually quite stupid. We're using lots and lots of resources and manpower, and we're getting no result. Zero, none. So I said, okay, let's approach this a different way. And so it was really how I got first started into working in this area. I didn't have the knowledge. I was just telling you folks about what trafficking really is. I didn't even know at that point. And it was something I slowly got an understanding of as I was witnessing firsthand what it was. And then my eyes started opening up. It was like, okay, what I originally viewed as just prostitution, it's not just prostitution. It's often something much bigger. And with that, then, there's people that are connected to it. And frequently, there's people that are moving women around. And then all of a sudden, my eyes were somewhat open about just what it is I was talking about. And then it would be easier for me when I would talk to people, because people would sometimes get caught up in definitions. Well, what's trafficking? What's prostitution? It's really the same thing. I mean, you can play some type of twisted game, I guess, to try to make some distinction, but there is no real distinction here, folks. And so with us, initially, it was me, I guess, starting from the top, figuring out just exactly what it was, and that became pretty clear. Then trying to figure out the extent of it, and then trying to come up with a strategy to deal with it. And so figuring out what exactly it was, that came about relatively quickly. It was everywhere. It was going on right under our noses. It was being done by people in our community. But the strategy part was the tricky part. Okay, what are we going to do about it? And as I say, part of it was trying to figure out the enormity of it, and it was everywhere. But then we had a strategy for that. Our strategy was we went out to the women who were on the street. If need be, we would arrest them, but we would arrest them with the mindset of we're arresting them so we can get them into some services, because otherwise this is going to be going on forever. Because no matter how many times you want to watch the movie Pretty Woman, that's not real, okay? I hate to burst your bubble, that's not real. The reality of it is the women that are traditionally involved in this are women that there's no one on the planet that would ever want their child to be engaged in any of this. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And so getting to the women and getting to them, giving them options, getting them treatment became our driving force. So it was like, okay, we'll get them into our custody to get them treatment to try to fix them, because then we'll change the trajectory of this. So they won't be going right back on the street. And then while we're doing that, we'll build some trust with them that we can get them to start telling us, now who is it that's moving you around, who's collecting the money, all that type of stuff. Then we were able to start making arrests. That was our strategy. That strategy was going very well. And then the legislature, and I wasn't opposed to this, mind you, because we weren't really arresting the women for purposes of let's lock them up and teach them a lesson. That doesn't work. That's dumb. That's just plain stupid. The legislature changed it so we really couldn't even get them in our custody anymore because they removed it as a felony. So basically we could really only basically give them a ticket. So our ability then to get them into our arms to treat them became harder, but happening at the same time. And here was the thing that really, it took prostitution, trafficking, and it put it on steroids, the internet. So when I first started as sheriff, most of this activity was going on in hotels and on the street. And shortly after I became sheriff, I want to say 2007, 8, something like that, all of a sudden a site called Craigslist popped up, then another site called Backpage popped up, and then things just exploded. All of this that used to be on the street now went into the internet. It became very difficult then for us, because it wasn't like we could go to that one place we knew where all the trafficking and prostitution was going on, because now most of it had moved. They didn't need to be at a location anymore because it was all on the internet. And so then we had to completely change what we did, which was now we had to become experts on manipulating the internet so we can get onto these sites and get to these different things. And we did that, and we got very good at it. And then I found that was sort of like trying to drink the ocean, one cup at a time, the lake one cup at a time. It just was not going to work. So I then started suing the internet sites. And it got really very difficult a couple times, but we eventually made it very, very difficult so that the biggies went out of business. The smaller ones still exist, but we were able to get Visa and MasterCard to get out of the business of helping, not fund this, but they were accepting the credit cards of the people that were doing all the trafficking. And so we made it more difficult for them, which was what we were trying to do. And so then my approach got to be more focused once the internet took over, to where it was, okay, go after the internet sites, put up our own ads at times so that we can get the Johns to come in. We'll take the Johns into custody. We write them tickets that are like $1,500 or something like that. Yeah, I think it's like $1,500. We take their cars, we tow them. We have them sit and either talk to one of our women, because I've hired women who have been trafficked victims themselves. I hired them as employees. I have, I think, 2 of them right now. They will sit and talk to the Johns we arrest and explain to them the realities of what it is and how they're enabling this. And then we send them on their merry way. They have to I think they have to pay like $1,000 to get their car back. We frequently offer them the opportunity to let their wives come and pick the car up for them, and they have never taken us up on that offer. So we get a decent amount of money, all goes into the program. And so we go at it by going after internet sites, going after the Johns, and then with the women, we try our best to get our claws in them so that we can get them into programs that address their mental health issues, their substance abuse issues, domestic violence issues, a whole range of things. The majority of these women that are involved with this are complete wrecks, as you would imagine. You couldn't imagine what their lives have been like. And so it's this very comprehensive plan that we have that we've been executing now for years. We've gotten most large jurisdictions around the country to adopt it, and so they sort of follow our model, which we put together. And I often tell people I sort of made it up as I was going along. It was just more logic driven, but based on my experience as a prosecutor and stuff like that, you knew this would work and that would work. But at the heart of it, it is something that I can't emphasize enough to you. It's not gotten better. I don't see it getting better. These internet sites have proliferated. There's many more of them. I'm still going after them because I'm not going to stop. So I'm just going to keep going after them and keep making their lives difficult. But it is very tricky. And the internet sites have gotten more sophisticated so that they require us, before we can put ads up, we have to have like driver's licenses that they run. We have to have phone numbers that they have. We have to stand there with a picture of us with the driver's license. It's gotten much more difficult, whereas before we can put up the ads, I could put them up. Now it's completely different. And so they're up in their game, we're up in our game, but it is everywhere. And so then the big question is, well, what can communities do? Communities can work with their elected officials to make sure that they're doing this in a really thoughtful way, that they're looking at it from the perspective of this can happen everywhere. It's not a stain on anyone's community. It's happening everywhere. And so in our community, are we working with the local hotels so that they know that here are the signs of someone being trafficked, here's what you can do to identify that, here's who you can reach out to. Does your police department realize they can work with us whenever they need us, because this is something we've got very good at. We specialize in it, and people don't recognize us, where your local police officers will be recognized by people. They don't know us. And to make sure that your elected people understand that things along the lines of working with the women who are involved with this are like long-term projects, and anything they can do in that area is wildly, wildly helpful. So that it sort of empowers yourself, so there's objective things you can do. And you can and should feel good about it. And then you can write, people in Congress and Senate and stuff like that. You can do that. That's usually like sort of just opening the window and yelling out there, because it's, trying to get something done in Washington has historically been not the way where it's most productive. If you work on a local level, you can get a lot more done. And so there are things that you yourselves can objectively do to help this. I just can't emphasize enough to you, for working on this issue over the years and becoming somewhat of the experts in this country on it, I can tell you that the problem isn't getting better, but it doesn't mean we give up. It doesn't mean we stop, because it's like overwhelming. Because I had somebody at the FBI, we got in a really nasty fight because they were all mad at me because I was going after one of these websites. And they're like, Sheriff, they work with us. I was like, oh really? Fascinating. That wouldn't be because you gave them a subpoena, because I believe if you consider that working with you, they don't have a choice. If they don't follow through on the subpoena, they go to jail. That's not really a good partnership, you moron. I was like, no, that's not a partnership. Well, if you get rid of them, they're just going to be another side. I go, really? No kidding. So what's your plan? Plan B is what? We do nothing? We just look away? Is that what your plan is? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm really done dealing with morons. Okay, we're moving on here. And so we just sort of continue to go after that with the notion that they're not going to go away, but it's something that we collectively cannot walk away from this thing. As I told you before, I've gotten to meet a load of these women over the course of the years. It is so heartbreaking. It is just horrible. When you hear their stories and what their lives have been like, and you're like, oh my God. And then you hear these fools that talk about legalization, that's the way to go. They're like, are you out of your mind? Can you give me one place where it's worked? Of course not. It sounds great to you because you're not legalizing it for your daughter to do it. You want it legalized for somebody else's daughter to do it. And I've told a couple of them, I say, here's the deal. I will sign on and support that bill if you will agree to absolutely encourage your daughter to do it. As soon as you do that, I'm on board. And you're dead silence. It's like, oh, wow. So your crazy ideas aren't as effective when you actually have to do it. But if it's someone else's kid, I'm bored. It's like, no, done with this stuff. And so these issues aren't going away. Some of these crazy ideas keep bubbling up. But there's just these constructive things that you guys can be engaged with, that we all collectively can work on, and just feel better that we're trying. We're not going to nail it. We're not going to end it. But we're making it better. Thank you so much. I'll be happy answering questions. Anybody has for me before the real guys come up? Yes?
Do you work at all with Tim Ballard, the guy from the real life story of Sound of Freedom?
I'm trying to remember if we did something at one point. There was, we've worked with so many, yeah, but we've worked with so many different national groups at different times. I want to say we did something at one point, but it was like a one-off thing, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a long-term relationship. We have a couple of long-term relationships with some national groups in Washington that really cool groups where they have developed a relationship with Microsoft, where they have people that volunteer, and what they've been doing is they have put together these bots that are fantastic. So like when our officers and people go and put ads online and then are trying to, cycle through them, it's one person at a time. These bots were hitting just, hundreds of things at the same time. And so that, once again, we're trying to up our game, but we've also been working with people over the years that are more on the ground type of folks, And so we could have, there was another group that we really worked a great deal. They set up their own non-for-profit, opened up a shelter for the women so that when we were getting the women in custody, they would take them in. But a lot of those are more sort of like one-offs. Yes, sir?
How much is the Illinois government supporting that, and how much resources do you get from, I would say Illinois government, not naming anybody?
Not a lot.
How do you get funding from your state?
That's always been a little bit tricky getting funding from the state. Yeah. And so we get very little. We put in occasionally for grants and things like that to help us with small little parts of what we're doing. They have. It's like, I don't know. It's sometimes very difficult to get them focused. What ends up happening frequently with law enforcement in like the state and stuff like that, they start talking about doing task forces and stuff like that. And I've explained to them that's really not as effective. There's more effective things we could do collectively here, and it has just not been on their radar screen. I mean, really, because I'm not saying we're perfect. I always tell people, listen, if you come up with something better, sign me up. I don't care. It's like I'm not going to be embarrassed that what we were working on, you've got something better. Sign me up. It's just how we're approaching it has been seen throughout the country as the best way to do it, because it's got all these different angles where you're going after the sites. And with the sites, that's how we get the traffickers, the bad guys. We can get into them. We go after the women by getting them into treatment so that they're not going back out and they have other options than going back out. We go after the Johns so that the Johns are sitting there thinking, I better not. Because we work with these bots so that we put our own ads up, and so the Johns will call us, and the bots will be dealing with 100 different Johns that we can only deal with one. And if it's not someone who's really if he's going after children, the bot kicks it to one of our live people who takes it over then, and then we try to get the guy to meet us at McDonald's or whatever it is. But if it's not, we just lead them on for a while, and then at the end we say, hey, FYI, for the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you've been talking to the Cook County Sheriff's Office, not a prostitute. We have your phone number. We suggest you might want to stop doing this. And we believe we've scared the hell out of a lot of people. And so we're trying like these different methods to go at it. But the state, long answer to your short question, we have not had a lot of engagement, particularly with them. We're willing to work with them if they want. Yes, ma'am.
Have you been working primarily with a lot of the nonprofit organizations? Like I support a group called OUR, Operation Nonprofit, which also has housing for...
Cindy and these folks would be able to give you specifics, but I do know we have worked with them. I remember one of our big partners for many years has been the Salvation Army, where we would be able to get them to give us housing, so then we'd get these women, because Cindy and their group, they offer the women just this range of things, and the primary thing they're usually looking for is housing. And so we probably work with them. They can give you specifics on that, but we do work a lot with non-for-profits, specifically for like that purpose, because they just need a real lot of help. And we're willing to work with, once again, we'll work with anybody on this stuff.
They have dog stick units.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, we were doing something recently with dogs. I can't remember what it was. We've tried lots, and we continue to add more to it. But we've really been upping our game on the technology side of it. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment, one thing that you are doing better is you're not victim blaming and victim shaming.
Yeah.
That historically is what has happened to the women.
Yeah, exactly.
Victims of the sex trafficking.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
Right.
I mean, seriously. I mean, give me a break. It's like, whoever, how, why? And then once again, then I get in these very unpleasant debates with these folks who like talk about legalization and stuff like that, and you're like, you're actually serious. You're serious with me right now. It's like, you understand the reality of what's going on here? And that's why, as I say, when you deal with these women, the stuff that we've seen over the years is just gut-wrenching. And I've met so many of these different people over the years. Some are young women, and trust me, I have 4 daughters, and the social media world, thankfully I've kept my daughters pretty shielded from a lot of that, and a lot of it's because I'm so scared given what I do. But that thing is so toxic on its very nature. Forget trafficking for a second, just very toxic. And it plays on the fact that girls are, worried about how they look and who's accepting them, something like that. Well, the traffickers all know that stuff too, and so they work that exact same thing. And so then they'll go to young women, they'll meet them in a range of places, malls, anywhere, online, you name it. They'll talk to them about how pretty they are. Hey, I work with an agency, we can get your pictures up, we can do this, that, and the other thing. Next thing you know, all of a sudden he's convinced her to take pictures with less clothing on, and now all of a sudden he's like, hey, this is going out unless you do this and this and this. And he's got his claws in her, and then it's a year down the road and she is in a bad way. Oh, please, it's yeah, absolutely. We had 2 brothers whose father was in prison already for trafficking. We caught the dad, he went to prison. We got 2 brothers that did it, not once but twice. The second time we were able to get federal charges, because the state charges we weren't able to get much of any type of penalty. The federal charges we were able to really ring them up. But they as soon as they got out on the first one, they went right back to the same girls, and we caught them online again, and we arrested them again. And so this is wild range. We've had multiple cases, I can't tell you how many cases, where it's the husband, ex-husband, and so we'll have the woman up in the hotel room with us, and we'll take her, I hate using the word custody because we're not like cuffing her or anything like that. We'll take her into our custody, saying we're going to get your help, and we'll eventually get her to say he's out there. And we're like, who is it? It's like, it's my husband. But he says if I don't keep doing this, he's calling DCFS on me. And we get that all the time, where the thing they're holding over the women is that if they don't keep doing it, they're going to call DCFS to take their kid away because they're a prostitute, and yet they're the one trafficking them. And so the whole thing is just so nasty and so insidious. So you just have to set aside what you might think is any degree of normality. There isn't any.
We've made a lot of progress on the hospital side, working in the emergency room and educating the doctors and the nurses.
That's so cool.
Look for those red flags. And we had a case recently up at Lutheran General where a pimp brought her in, and then he took all of her clothing. So if he wasn't going to be there when she was discharged, she would have nowhere to go and nothing to put on to even leave the hospital. So they have every tactic that you can imagine to keep them in that slavery.
Well, we had one case on the west side, it was about 5 years ago, and so we had gotten this one woman off the street, and then she started spilling the beans to us, and led us back there. We were able to get a search warrant and went in, but she had told us ahead of time what to expect, and even after hearing that, I didn't believe her, not because I thought she was a liar, but I just couldn't believe this. She was 100% right. The locks to it was a second floor, like a, duplex or whatever the hell they call that, apartment building. It was on the second floor. The locks, there was only locks from the outside, so it was like a jail cell. He would leave, he'd lock them in there, and then he would feed them McDonald's and heroin. That was all they would get. And then they'd have to turn a certain amount of tricks. And then the apartment was just like multiple rooms with mattresses. And it was interesting, she kept talking about this one, it was like a bathroom plunger stick, a wooden stick that he said he used to beat them with. And that was more of like an aside, because we had all the rest of the stuff there. And sure enough, when we went in there, I'm just walking around, and trust me, I'm not the lead on anything, thank God. I'm a lawyer, okay? I'm not the real police. But I'm in there and walking around, sure enough, above the refrigerator, I found the plunger. It was literally exactly what she had said. Everything was exactly what she said. These women had been just beaten for, I don't know, weeks. They were locked in there, and this thing had been going on. And so, and that wasn't that far from a more affluent community either. It's just, as I said, I could give you story after story. One's worse than the next, but it just is more showing you how pervasive this is, and how collectively we can do things about this stuff. We don't have to accept this stuff, but it's not easy. I'll tell you what, when I first went after an internet site, I thought this was gonna be pretty much a slam dunk because it was so clear what they were doing. I mean, my office, we put up, I think it was, I had a number, I think it was 1,000, it might have been 500, I can't remember what it was. I wanted to hit just a hard number of ads that I put up, and every time it was a prostitution trafficking case, every time. And so we did like 500 or 1,000, I can't remember what it was. And every single one was. There wasn't one time where we had to like apologize. Oh my God, this was a real masseuse, you know, oh, we're so sorry. Not one. We were batting 1,000. And so I figured with that, you know, we'll be fine. And when we went after the website, they came after me really hard because they were trying to intimidate me. And so they brought in this law firm from Seattle, which is the best known law firm for First Amendments, sued me saying I violated their First Amendment rights, which is a unique lawsuit because what that does, it pierces my protection as an elected official, and then so they can go after me personally, my house, everything I have. And they were at me, and they were that close to winning. And the only thing that saved me was I got the law firm of Kirkland and Ellis to agree to represent me for free because I couldn't afford it. And we were able to hold these people off. But they're not messing around because they make so much money. Oh my God, so much money. And that's why, as I say, we got to stay on it, but it is not easy. Because you sit there and say, well, why hasn't Congress changed this now? Because there's so much money involved. That's why.
I've heard that each woman that they prostitute can bring them in about $100,000 a year.
That's probably about right. Yeah, that's probably about right.
So if they've got a couple girls, they're doing.
Oh, yeah. It's probably about right. Yeah. I can take a couple more questions. I'll let these guys on. I can go on all night. Anybody else? Anybody? Yes, sir.
What's your manpower on this? As far as how many officers you have in this department compared to your officers on the street?
Between our special ops, we've got, I'd say we have about at any given time, they work on a bunch of different things at once, but I'd say probably 15 to 20 that are currently working at some point in human trafficking, as well as child exploitation and some of other stuff. But
yeah, so about 15 or 20.
Number fluctuates, but around there is a good estimate.
Yeah, about 15 or 20 police officers, detectives working on this, and also child exploitation, which is more like strictly kids, deals with pornography and that as well. And then there's a separate group that is the victim unit. And how many are you guys, Cindy?
14 right now.
14, and some of them are survivors that we were able to get off the street who come work with us. They're phenomenal. I mean, my God, you want to talk about people who can connect? These women have been so battered and destroyed that it's very difficult for like police to get them to open up and to talk to us about anything. Heaven forbid, actually give us the guy who's doing this. But when the former victims talk to them, they're talking the same language, and we were able to get a lot more. And then we're able to get charges against the really bad guys too. So it helps us in a lot of levels. So the unit overall in my office, you know, I have about a little over 600 police officers. I have about 6,000 employees, but 600 are police officers. And then the civilian side is, I don't have that exact number, but in these units, it's a substantial number for our office that pretty much focuses on this. And that's why we're able to help other jurisdictions quite often. Yes, ma'am?
Do you get them away from the area? So what if they might be in a jail again?
We offer them whatever help they might need. So if that help means trying to get them out into some other location, we absolutely work on making sure that happens. And it almost always is, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's almost always complicated by children are involved too, so we're trying to work that one. But we're, you know, actively and aggressively working to catch him. So it's not like a complicated mix. Trust me, if she wants to get out and needs help, we have all sorts of different, non-for-profits we work with to try to help us pay for housing needs and whatever the other needs are. And so if it means getting them out of here, they get out of here. But it gets sometimes a little bit complicated with children. Yes, ma'am.
How can the average person, like, how can all of us, like, recognize when we see someone like that, or how to help someone like that?
It's usually better like reaching out to us because we are pretty good at it, and we're pretty responsive. I'm not hedging on that, but we can follow up pretty quickly on things so that if you had some indication, that's why I had mentioned at one point we do work with hotels and things like that to try to educate people and then say, if you see this, call this number. It'd be the same thing. If you had some indication of it, I had a woman just a short time ago, she grabbed me when I was just walking down the street and said that she was very confident that there was a operation going on across the street from her house, and we did undercover work, and we found something, not to the extent that she had thought. It wasn't that she was close, but we found something there. But we moved pretty quick. And it's usually better to give us a call, your local police department, and then they can call us too if they feel it's like something that they want to bring us in as well. But the quicker you do that, we can move pretty quick.
Is there a hotline number or is there a number?
We're going to share.
we
the
have-
phone.
Yeah, they got a, you know, I'll stop now because I've now ruined their presentation completely. But yes, but so just anything we can ever do, folks, please let us know. We're around here. Thank you so, so much.
Lieutenant's going to talk.
Oh, sure, thank you so much, sir. My name is Jim Dres. I'm a lieutenant with the Cook County Sheriff's Police Special Victims Unit. My partner in crime, Cindy Gonzalez, she's with Victim Services, and that's Cindy Kensinger. She's our Executive Director of our Victim Services Unit. So, whenever I talk about the Sheriff's Police Special Victims Unit, I get a lot of questions where they say something along the lines of, like the show. And I said, well, it's kind of like the show, Special Victims Unit, SVU, however they're calling it these days, except what they solve in like a 42-minute episode usually takes us about 3 to 6 months. And while watching that show, I always asked myself, it's called the Special Victims Unit, but I never really see much about the victim. It's just about the criminal process. You know, the arrest, the court. What about the victim? And I always wondered that my whole career a lot of times, like, whatever happened to the victim? Well, late 2019, early 2020, Sheriff Dart had a vision, and it was to basically start a victim-centered unit. What is a victim-centered unit? It means regardless of the outcome of the case, whether it be charges, no charges, she just wants to move on with her life, it's victim-centered, we help the victim. Unfortunately, I've seen times in policing where if they don't want to pursue criminal charges, you basically walk into the door, shake their hand, and wish them well. That's the opposite of what we do. You have two parts. You have the part that I'm in charge of, I help run, and that's where we handle the criminal investigations. Then you have victim services, and they handle the victim. And they're amazing, right? They're really, really good. And no matter what, the victim comes first. So that's the beauty of our unit. And what's so nice about it, it's become a trend in trafficking, kind of in the state as well as the nation, is becoming more and more victim-centered, okay? We've stopped treating the women and men, because men are trafficked too, like offenders. We started treating them more like victims. And it's been pretty proven, had a lot of proven success so far. So, that being said, it's a little history of us. What is a special victims unit as far as what do we do? We do basically all things trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking. We do something called internet crimes against children, which is your state of child exploitation. We have a unit that handles at-risk youth with DCFS. We do some animal crimes. We do street level prostitution and kind of everything in between. It's a busy unit and keep getting busier, okay? One thing the sheriff touched on that was 100% correct is when we talk, Cindy and I have talked a few times about trafficking, we get a lot of comments as far as when we take it, right? And that's like really a very, 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 very small percentage of what trafficking actually is. Trafficking is a local problem, and it's big. It's way bigger than I thought it was. So I tell people all the time, well, Jeffrey Epstein brought trafficking to the media. He made a name out. You have people saying the word trafficking. That's not the big problem in trafficking. It's a very, very small percentage. Like the sheriff said, probably 1 or 2%. While an island sounds cool for the media, what I'm worried about, the people I want to stop, the people that we're up here to save, and that's what we're doing is we're saving them, is I want to find that 14-year-old girl who's being forced to do this, okay, with local people going to visit her on a weekly basis. That's what I'm trying to stop. That's my heart going, right? So, please go back a little bit this slide. like I said, so we have, that's kind of the criminal side of things. We have roughly anywhere from 15 to 20 officers that will work in trafficking as well as other things. Cindy's team, you have 14?
Yep.
They have 14 women, and when I in a second here, Cindy is going to talk about victim services, as well as some of the stuff on just kind of trafficking in a nutshell, all right? We're going to talk for a little bit, maybe about 15 minutes, and open it up for a few questions. I can't give her unit enough credit because of what they do for these women, okay, and men. And because a lot of the women and men that we come in contact with, they're kind of like what society treats as like throwaway kids, throwaway people. Like they don't care about them. And a lot of times the work they do, that's the first time in some of these victims' lives, like anyone's actually really fought for them. And to me, that's, I don't know, I can't say enough good stuff about it. So with that, I'm gonna let Cindy take the mic here, and
thank you, Lieutenant.
I'll still be here, but she got to
So as Lieutenant mentioned, I'm the director of the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit. So I am so thankful to work for an incredible sheriff that he really focuses on the victims of these situations of this crime. So he had a vision and mission to help the victims long term. And so that is where he created what we call Victim Support Services. And so it is run by our executive director, and it's so funny because both of our names are Cindy's. So you were just like, Cindy here, Cindy there. So both of us are named Cindy's. But this unit is also comprised of survivors of either human trafficking, sexual assault, or domestic violence. So we're all survivors of some kind of situation that we are able to relate to the victims that we're working with, because a lot of the times the victims that we do work with, they feel isolated and they're the only victim that understands their situation. And so having that person to say like, you know, I know kind of the situation that you're going through, like this is gonna be okay. So being there on a personal level really helps an individual in their situation. So that is where we started in 2022, where Sheriff Dart really put us together. And so, yeah, next slide, please. So all of us are also 40-hour domestic violence trained. So what does that mean is that we have taken special courses on how to be more victim-centered and how to approach individuals who are victims of specialized crimes such as human trafficking. Because we understand that not everybody are able to engage with victims, so we were able to go through this training and really understand of all complexities of what being a victim is, including mental health, services, and all that stuff that may come with being a victim. So with all that being said, we also have licensed clinicians on our team, which is awesome, because whenever we do work with the unit, a lot of the times these individuals are in crisis, are in mental health crisis. And so we're able to have licensed clinicians to do like step-in crash crisis mental health support, which is awesome because a lot of the times like, these individuals have been in it for so long and they just don't know how to engage with people or with the situation and stuff like that. So next slide, please. So I know somebody had mentioned about services, which is awesome because we do not run and operate without the community, without partnerships. So here's a list of the things that we provide, and that's just a small thing of things of what we were able to provide and connect victims with. So we do rely on community for shelter, housing. We do have partnerships to have temporary placement, safe placement for victims whenever they're in a situation. We also have food pantries that we work with, legal support, because a lot of the times the traffickers may put them in very, tricky situations that they may need legal support. Job readiness programs, a lot of the times they've never had a job before. So we're able to even help them build a resume, because that is very important to do. Education, we connect them to schools. Documentation, like their ID, birth certificate, documentation. A lot of individuals are forced to give up their IDs, their birth certificates, stuff like that, so they don't have that. So we're able to work with other agencies to help them recover those documents back. Because how easy is it for us to go to the DMV and be like, yeah, I'm so-and-so, and I need my license? Not very easy. So we help with these individuals to really get those services to them again. Detox facilities. A lot of the times in trafficking, their traffickers may force them to use substance use and make them depend on drugs or alcohol. So it's really hard for them to detox when they want to, but they can't. We connect them to other community service providers so that they can do a lot of more like casework. Also immigration services. So what does that mean? A lot of the times, like what Sheriff Dart was saying, that they are migrants. So a lot of the times, because they're undocumented, they're fearful of law enforcement. They're fearful of just going to the hospital because they're fearful of deportation or like what's going to happen. But what they don't realize is that because they are a victim of a crime, they're eligible for immigration status. So there's something called a T visa, which is a trafficking visa, which is given specifically for individuals who are victims of trafficking. And a U visa, which is a universal crime visa. If you're a victim of a crime, you're able to apply for that. So a lot of these times, these victims won't understand that there's services that helps them because they're scared, or their trafficker threatened them saying, I'm gonna call ICE on you because you're not from here. So it makes it a very tricky. And again, like each case is different. So no two cases that we've ever worked with are alike. And we're gonna just pass on the next couple slides.
No.
Oh, no, actually, no.
For 1 second.
Yeah.
Cindy is very humble, and she's listed some of the resources that Victim Services has. But when I say they have, their Rolodex on services is huge, which is amazing. Because sometimes, the victims will need something, and they'll ask me for it, and I'm like, I don't have an idea. And I'll ask her, and she'll start not only just know the answer, but 3 different options for the answer. So it's a lot, which is just absolutely amazing on many levels.
So thank you for that side note. Thankfully, because of Sheriff Dart and his efforts, we're able to partner with Uber to provide transportation. So we have money from Uber that help us provide transportation to and from hospitals or any kind of appointments that may have. We also have been gracious enough to get from other agencies like beauty supplies like Ulta. They've been really gracious enough to provide us with hygiene products, because a lot of people, they don't come with any of that. So they're just like, I haven't washed my face, or I don't have body wash, or I don't have a clean pair of underwear. So we're able to partner with so many agencies to provide these items that's so everyday common use to us, but it's very essential for someone who doesn't have anything. So that we're able, thankfully, to be able to provide all these items for these individuals. Also, what is human trafficking? I know that a lot of people have an understanding or an idea what human trafficking is, but a lot of people don't understand the true definition of what human trafficking is. So there's 2 forms of trafficking. There's sex trafficking and there's labor trafficking. Who knew about labor trafficking before today? Okay, so quite a few. So the difference is that this is the definition that's taken from the TVPA Act, that is the Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was signed in 2000. So 2000 was not that long ago. But up until then,